It is August 31st, 2025. If you've recently tried to sell a bottle of California wine, a case of Idaho potatoes, or, frankly, anything with a Made in the USA sticker, you might have had better luck selling a timeshare to a mayfly. What began as a seemingly standard political squabble has morphed into a full-blown economic crisis, a quiet but devastating disaster unfolding just north of our border. This isn't your garden-variety consumer trend, it's a national movement, and it started with a few choice words from a politician. On February 1, 2025, amidst escalating trade war tensions, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stood at a podium and essentially told his entire country to swipe left on American goods. He urged them to choose Canadian products and to choose Canadian services. Now, a political leader encouraging citizens to buy local isn't exactly groundbreaking. In the 21st century, a movement isn't real until it has a hashtag, a Facebook group, an app. The Canadian boycott of 2025 checked all those boxes with terrifying efficiency. Almost overnight, the Prime Minister's call to action was supercharged by social media, transforming from a top-down directive into a bottom-up, digitally organized phenomenon. Buy Canadian Facebook groups exploded in popularity, one of the largest amassing a staggering 1.2 million members in weeks. These weren't just places to vent, they became digital war rooms. Tips on finding Canadian-made ketchup lists of American parent companies to avoid barcode scanning apps were created, designed specifically to help shoppers identify and avoid American-made goods. And having your phone buzz with a warning that you're about to inadvertently fund your opponent in a trade war. Petitions circulated online, calling for clearer, more prominent country of origin labels on products. The movement had successfully gamified patriotism, turning every shopping trip into a mission to support the home team. While politicians in Washington, D.C. were busy looking at macroeconomic charts, the real pain of this boycott was being felt on a much smaller, more human scale. It wasn't the multinational corporations with diversified global markets that were bleeding first. It was the small businesses, the family-owned shops, the independent artisans, who had built their livelihoods on a stable, friendly relationship with their Canadian customers. These are the businesses that don't have lobbyists or massive cash reserves. For a small business, a 30% drop in a key market isn't a statistic you present to a board. It's a conversation you have to have with your employees about cutting hours. Consider the story of Skita, a small headwear company based in Burlington, Vermont. In a heartbreaking email, a Canadian customer who had been purchasing from them regularly for 13 years wrote to say they would be boycotting the brand indefinitely. The company's Canadian website business plummeted by 30% in February alone. For a small business, a 30% drop in a key market isn't a statistic you present to a board. It's a conversation you have to have with your employees about cutting hours. These stories are not isolated incidents. They are snapshots of a widespread economic calamity unfolding in slow motion. In Pennsylvania, Mark Krames, the CEO of Demeter Fragrances, had been excitedly planning an expansion into the Canadian market. Calling it a wasted effort, he made the difficult decision to pull the plug. These are the forgotten casualties of the trade war, not faceless corporations, but real people whose dreams are being dismantled by forces far beyond their control. The economic devastation caused by the Canadian boycott isn't a single massive explosion. It's a series of shockwaves rippling through the American economy in ways both obvious and subtle. The most immediate impact, of course, is lost sales. When half of all Canadians, 53% to be exact, claim they are actively boycotting your country's companies, the cash registers simply stop ringing. This isn't just about apples or perfume, it's a systemic rejection across multiple sectors. When several major Canadian retailers announced they would be pulling American alcohol from their shelves, between early March and late April 2025, U.S. spirit sales in Canada plummeted by an astonishing 66.3%. This catastrophic drop in sales has a direct and painful consequence: job losses. Businesses in American border towns, long economically intertwined with their northern neighbor, are bearing the brunt. In places across Washington state, for instance, business owners who are heavily dependent on Canadian shoppers are being forced to lay off employees and, in some cases, shutting their doors for good. Beyond the immediate pain of lost sales and jobs, there's the quieter long-term damage of canceled investments and soured relationships. Nowhere is the economic carnage of the 2025 boycott more visible than in the American towns that hug the 49th parallel. For generations, these communities have had a symbiotic relationship with Canada. They're not just geographically close, their economies are deeply dependent on the steady flow of Canadian shoppers, tourists, friends coming south to spend money. These visitors fill up their gas tanks, buy groceries, pick up packages, book hotel rooms, or at least they used to. Now that steady flow has slowed to a trickle, and these once thriving border towns are facing an existential crisis. The tourism sector, a cornerstone of these local economies, has been hit with the force of a hurricane. Julie Marks, president of the Vermont Short-Term Rentals Association, has been on the front lines watching in horror as the cancellations pile up. "This is going to have a huge impact on our entire economy," she stated, "whether you're in tourism or not. When tourists stop coming, the pain isn't confined to hotels. It hits restaurants, retail shops, gas stations, and local attractions. It's a domino effect that threatens the entire economic ecosystem of a town." Travel bookings from Canada to the United States for the April-September 2025 period decreased by more than 70% compared to the previous year. Air Canada itself reported a 10% drop in bookings to U.S. cities. The message is being sent by land and by air. Americans, we are not visiting you right now. When you start to dig into the data behind the 2025 Canadian boycott, the word disaster begins to feel like an understatement. The numbers are not just bad, they are historically, catastrophically bad. 85% of Canadians are actively trying to avoid American products. This is a level of consumer consensus that is almost unheard of in modern economics, a unified front that has translated directly into devastating financial losses for American businesses. The drop in Canadian visitors has been nothing short of breathtaking. The figure of a 70% decrease in travel bookings from Canada for the summer of 2025 is a number that should send a chill down the spine of every hotel owner, restaurateur, and airline executive in the United States. This isn't just about Canadians skipping a trip to Disneyland, it's part of a broader trend. The World Travel and Tourism Council has put a jaw-dropping figure on it, estimating the loss in revenue from international travelers, a decline led by the Canadian boycott, is expected to cost the U.S. economy a staggering $12.5 billion this year alone. The United States Travel Association estimated that even a 10% reduction in Canadian visitors could result in 14,000 job losses and $2.1 billion in spending. These are jobs in hospitality, retail, and transportation, sectors that are often the backbone of local economies. The 66.3% collapse in U.S. spirit sales in Canada over a 2-month period is a perfect case study in just how quickly and completely a market can be shut down when retailers and consumers act in concert. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. In the case of the 2025 boycott, the economic pain being inflicted on the United States is directly translating into an unexpected windfall for Canadian companies. As millions of consumers pivot their spending inward, they are creating a surge in demand for homegrown goods and services that is breathing new life into the domestic market. According to one CBC News report, some Canadian retailers have seen sales jump by 80% compared to the previous year, with a few experiencing surges of up to 150% in February 2025 alone. One New Brunswick-based company, Irving Personal Care, has seen its shipments of diapers quadruple on a weekly basis. Quadruple. That kind of growth is transformative. More shifts, more orders for suppliers, and more security for local workers. The success of homegrown apples, which sold out while U.S. apples were left untouched, is a potent symbol of this new reality. The boycott has effectively become the most successful Buy Canadian marketing campaign in history. Canada is experiencing an unintended economic renaissance, proving one country's disaster can be another's opportunity. This domestic economic stimulus is creating a powerful feedback loop. If American policymakers and business leaders are holding their breath waiting for this boycott to fizzle out, they are going to turn blue. All evidence suggests that the movement's momentum is sustained, deeply entrenched in the Canadian psyche. A YouGov poll found that 53% of Canadians have already started some form of boycott. An Angus Reid Institute poll found that 85% were consciously trying to replace U.S. products. This isn't about price, it's about national pride and a feeling of being pushed too far. The movement is powered by a sense of collective identity and a belief that individual actions, when combined, can send a powerful message. Canadians have demonstrated a strong commitment and a willingness to potentially pay more or accept fewer choices to support their principles. Their resolve has been tested for months, and rather than waning, it appears to have hardened. This is a seismic shift in the relationship between two of the world's closest allies. It speaks to a deeper sense of betrayal and a loss of trust that will take years, if not decades, to repair. Loyal long-term customers writing to American businesses to declare they will be boycotting them indefinitely. This is the language of conviction, not convenience. The movement is not over, and it won't be until they feel they are heard and respected. As we stand here at the end of August 2025 looking at the economic wreckage, the critical question is, what happens next? Is this boycott a temporary storm that will eventually pass, or is it the new climate in which US-Canada relations must now exist? For the boycott to end, it would require more than just the signing of a new trade agreement. It would require a fundamental rebuilding of trust, and trust is far harder to restore than it is to break. American businesses and political leaders would need to engage in a sustained effort of economic diplomacy, acknowledging the damage done and demonstrating a renewed respect for their northern partner. It will require humility, outreach, and a genuine effort to understand why their closest ally felt compelled to take such drastic action. Until then, American businesses will continue to pay the price, one lost sale, one canceled trip, and one shuttered storefront at a time. The divergence between the two economies is likely to widen. The path forward for the United States involves not just fixing a trade dispute, but mending a broken friendship. This isn't just a boycott, it's a continental breakup, and the economic consequences are just beginning to be fully understood. The numbers don't lie, and right now, they're screaming.